Staying in the ACC, Duke's rival, North Carolina, number 7 in the AP poll, hosting Virginia Tech on Saturday, 2 p.m. tip-off on ACC Network. Haslametrics makes North Carolina an 11-point home favorite, over-under of 149.5. In Eli's rankings, of course, Virginia Tech also not ranked. And you are right again with the AP poll with UNC at number 7. Now, let's have a discussion about North Carolina. Lost 3 of their past 5 games. We have talked about on previous shows that I have been concerned about North Carolina being outside the top 200 in rim and 3 rate, which is going to increase the chance of being upset any given night. And sure enough, 3 of the last 5, including to my Syracuse Orange, which is why I'm wearing the gear today. Great win. So good that they're still not good enough to be on the next 4 out line, apparently, of most bracketology. So great, good, but not great, apparently. But back to North Carolina here, Eli. Yeah, I'm very tempted to take 11 if that's what the spread's going to be here with Virginia Tech, just because of the way North Carolina has played in recent weeks.
Yeah, they've lost 2 of their last 5, or they've lost 3 of their last 5. Right, 3 of the last 5, including a home loss to Clemson. We'll get to the Tigers in a little bit. I have some pretty alarming stats for you about UNC's defense. I know you mentioned that their shot selection isn't great, but Syracuse had a 70.8% effective field goal percentage.
Yeah, they couldn't miss.
Right, they couldn't miss. Inside the arc and behind the arc. 22 of 31 from 2, 8 of 17 from 3. That combined for the second highest, this is wild, second highest effective field goal percentage and 2-point percentage by an opponent in the KenPom era, which dates back to 1999.
Holy hell.
Your Orange were elite offensively. Could you ever have expected, say, that under Jim Boeheim, at least in the last 5 years? Probably not.
No. I mean, you're getting me excited that we might make an NIT run to Madison Square Garden now. But other than that, I mean, I'm not excited, but I am quite surprised.
Now, one other thing, too, with UNC, which doesn't necessarily favor Virginia Tech offensively just because they're so 3-point oriented. That's the way Mike Young's offense typically work, especially this team with Hunter Couture. But UNC's rim defense largely has been a strength, especially when you have a really good shot blocker in Armando Bacot, but not of late. Syracuse 13 of 16 at the rim. Miami nearly upsetting UNC, covering last Saturday, 16 of 22 at the rim. Clemson, 9 of 14. Duke, 20 of 29, even in a 9-point loss, not covering at UNC. And Georgia Tech in that upset as an 8.5-point home dog, 10 of 16. That's concerning for a defense and largely in general for a team that isn't getting efficient shots and does allow transition opportunities because of that, or at least of late. I'm pretty concerned with UNC overall, man, even if maybe they cover this game and have a bounce-back performance against Vatek.
Yeah, like I said, I'm very tempted to take double digits here with Virginia Tech if that's what it's going to be. The one concern I have with their defense against UNC's offense is it appears that UNC is going to dominate the offensive glass and get a lot of second chance opportunities here. That gives me pause. It's almost like I'm watching the ACC version of Houston offensively with North Carolina here. But overall, I mean, really cool matchup in terms of the effective field goal percentage stats here. Number 1 effective field goal percentage offense of Virginia Tech against the number 1 effective field goal percentage defense in North Carolina. And if what you're saying is true after shooting all those holes and concerns in North Carolina's defense, then I'm probably leaning towards liking the offensive side of that number 1 effective field goal percentage matchup. So yeah, we'll see what the number is when it comes out. The game is in Chapel Hill, so I can't imagine there's going to be a ton of interest on Virginia Tech, but we'll see. But your points about North Carolina are well taken. And just give us a final thought here in the ACC about Clemson. I know you wrote them up as potentially a sleeper Final Four team here.
Yeah, one last nugget on UNC, which sides with potentially taking Vatek, unless, like I had on, UNC just has a bounce-back game and trucks inside the arc, like you touched on, too, with Bacot and generating second chance shots. But if you go back from December 20th through January 26th, UNC's opponents shot 22 or 22.8% from 3. January 27th through Valentine's Day, yesterday, as we're recording this on Thursday, 36.8%. So high variance team, and regression has come, maybe negative, or maybe they get some positive regression in this game if Vatech is off from three. But traditionally speaking, that's not what Mike Young's offenses do. Have an off shooting night, top 70 in 3-point scoring rate. That's a strength for this team yet again this season. Motion offense that relies heavily on its perimeter shooting with Couture and these really, really high volume 3-point shooters. So I'm not super concerned for Vatech unless they just have one of those negative variance games like we saw with St. Joe's against Loyola Chicago on the road last night. But last thing I want to get to with Clemson and the ACC, you can read the full breakdown about my futures bet over at thelines.com. Final Four future, 28-1 on FanDuel Sportsbook. You can use the promo code over at thelines.com for FanDuel, so be sure to check that out too if you're not a user over at FanDuel Sportsbook. But biggest note that I didn't touch on in the article just because I had a lot of teams to get to. Since North Carolina State transfer Jack Clark came back from his injury on January 20th, I know, like UNC and Virginia Tech in a sense too, Clemson may be known more so for its offense this season, but Clemson has a top 20 defensive efficiency in the country since Clark came back on January 20th. So really, really big Clemson offense, even though you have a smaller point guard and guards that can get beat off the dribble like we saw last night against Miami. Gerard, really good 3-point shooter, Syracuse transfer, but a liability defensively, but really, really big up front with Clark back in the lineup, 3 through 5. So also, like Virginia Tech, Clemson relies on its 3-point shooting and really efficient, especially of late. I know they had some negative variance themselves in the beginning of ACC play, but PJ Hall and Gerard have really stepped it up from behind the arc, and they're positioned for a number 5 seed overall right now. So a team that's 28-1, and considering they're favored in 5 of their next 6 games to wrap up the regular season, they could theoretically finish with a number 4 seed. That's pretty good value at 28-1 for a potential number 4 seed, even if you're not super high in the ACC. And last point here, plus 1750 over at one of the sharper sports books, Circa Sports. So just keep that in mind too. For a team that's priced at 28-1, even if you're just playing the number, I think it's a good bet.